The James Show Podcast.
Terrible news. Billy Joel had to cancel some concerts here because of a condition, normal pressure hydrocephalus. What is that? I'm not going to pretend to know. That's why we asked our next guest to come on, Lee Richardson from the Brain Performance Center on the James Show. Welcome back, Lee. What does this mean, normal pressure hydrocephalus?
Well, it's a pretty uncommon condition, and what it really is that you've got fluid, it's spinal fluid around the brain, and that fluid can build up inside or around your brain, and it can disrupt the way your brain functions. I mean, it can make it harder to think and concentrate, and one of the most common noticeable effects of it is it affects your gait. And sometimes people will almost think it looks like Parkinson's.
So what do we think caused this in Billy Joel?
Well, it's the average age for this condition is to start around age 70. And there's two kinds of this condition. One, and about 50% of it have it, they have no idea what caused it. And the second is it related to something else, another medical disease? And I think within him, he certainly starts around 70. He's 76. When you think about the amount of wear and tear he has put on that brain with his performance, traveling all over the world, performing, the amount of noise that he has exposed that brain to, it makes me wonder if that didn't impact it. But technically, medical doctors say that, it's the only thing that they can correlate it to is age. It doesn't depend on your race or sex or anything else.
Yeah, I noticed on this Fox News article, it said that it could have been exacerbated by his performances. Does singing hard affect your brain fluid?
Well, he had a fall on stage in February, and I do think that could have affected it. Because anytime you hit your head, and if you fall, you jolt your spine for sure, and that puts your brain in a dysregulated state.
Yeah, and I'm trying to read up on the situation with Billy Joel. It sounds like a lot of these symptoms could match like Alzheimer's or dementia or something like that. Is this something that could be affecting former President Biden too?
Absolutely. That's a clearer case to call. But, that's one of the reasons why I think the medical community has trouble diagnosing this, because the symptoms look very much like dementia. And when somebody gets to be around 70, we almost expect that they'll start to experience some cognitive issues.
Lee Richardson, Brain Performance Center, what are some of the treatments for what Billy Joel has?
Well, really, there's one treatment, and it's surgery, and it's pretty simple, and it's usually pretty effective.
You just drill a little hole in his head and let it leak out?
Well, more like put a little shunt in his head to kind of manage the flow, to keep the flow more regulated.
It's only a slight joke then.
Yeah, it really was.
All right. Is there anything we can do to lessen our likelihood of developing this?
Well, I think Billy Joel did a great job of acknowledging this and making all of us more aware of health issues. And when his doctor gave him good medical advice, he followed it. And that certainly is something that we could all practice, is good self-care. And I think that he's really leveraging his influence to advocate for better health. So that's something that we can all pay attention to.
Is this something you expect a full recovery from, or is this a chronic condition that you have to manage from here on out?
Well, they say that you can't have a full recovery, that it's, you get the surgery, and it's not unusual at all for you to come back from it.
All right. Well, that's good news. Thank you very much. This is Lee Richardson from the Brain Performance Center in Dallas. I appreciate your insight on Billy Joel's condition.
Thank you.
And I want to ask you, why does this make us so sad? I mean, I don't know Billy Joel. In fact, Billy Joel's a little before my time. But still, when you see a guy that you kind of feel like and he's not doing so well, the connection we have, or we think we have, with some of these people, I find that profound. Like, I'm a guy who's like, celebrities aren't any more important than anyone else. But I got to admit, when I see some of these guys who seem like nice people and they're suffering, it makes me sad. Why do we feel stronger about him than, I don't know, any other random person from, where's he from, New Jersey? I don't know. I really don't. I tell you, I'm not a Billy Joel fan. He's a little before my time. But I know his songs. I know Piano Man and Uptown Girl, Garrett. I'm just saying, like, he was popular. That was before I was paying attention. I think I was like 4 when Uptown Girl came out. I really don't know. But I got to tell you, especially for the celebrities or musicians from like my era, I do feel a connection to them. Now, it's not as strong as some other people. A lot of people take it way too far. I remember way back in the day, I was working in a TV station in a newsroom when Michael Jackson died. What was that, 2008 or 2009 or something? Oh, you remember? Garrett remembers that one. But I remember seeing the news because there was a bit of a debate for a second there because all the networks were reporting that Michael Jackson's been taken to the hospital. TMZ was reporting that he's dead. And so I was trying to convince the people in the newsroom, go ahead and report that he's dead. TMZ's usually right about stuff like that. They're like, come on, TMZ. I don't trust them. Turned out they were right. But there was a conversation I remember having with this lady named Linda, who I looked, and she was literally crying. Now, she wasn't like ugly face crying, but she had tears rolling out of both of her eyes. I'm like, Linda, you gonna be all right? And she's like, I grew up with him. And I said, Linda, you're from Gary, Indiana? She said, no, I'm from here, but I feel like I grew up with him. Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. And so we kind of conflate these things. Now, let me put a little caveat on here. I can understand if you're wildly in love with me. No, I'm just kidding. But like talk show hosts, where you listen to us for hours a day, for years at a time, you really do start to know them. You really do kind of know me if you listen to the James Show. You really did know Rush Limbaugh if you listened to him for years and years and years. You know, you knew his wife's name, you knew his background. Sometimes you'd have his brother on the show, David. And so, you know, there's a little more of a connection with the people who you just have to listen to us talk for 3 hours a day. But Billy Joel, I mean, how many interviews could you have possibly seen with this guy? What do you know about him personally? He was married to Christy Brinkley for a while. He has a daughter that scarily looks a lot like him. But I really don't know a whole lot of biography, but it kind of brings me down. And I think this is a lot of subconscious here. You don't know Billy Joel. He didn't come to your graduation. He didn't go to your soccer games when you were in high school. He didn't come to your kid's birthday party. But he was playing in the background. You have heard him at pretty much every wedding reception you've been to in your entire life. You have heard his songs at the piano bar whenever you go to like the Improv in Addison, and then afterwards you go across the hallway to the piano bar, or whenever you're at on a cruise ship and they have the piano bar, or when you go to Bourbon Street, New Orleans, there's a piano bar. And you hear Billy Joel. I think you subconsciously get these little thumbtacks put in your memory where you associate. The song could just be in the background. You might not even know that you're listening to Billy Joel, but he really is. Just hearing the music, the man feels like he's a part of your life. And I think that's a good sign that you're not a sociopath. 800-288-9227. This is Donna in Dallas. You're on WBAP. What do you think about the Billy Joel situation?
Well, unlike yourself, I remember Billy Joel firsthand, and I'm very sad about what happened. That's pretty tragic. But my biggest thing was Neil Diamond, who ended up with Parkinson's. 2018, I think he announced he had to stop touring, and it was the same concept. I just was in love with the guy. Very nice man, and you knew so much about him, and he did a lot of interviews, and so that's how I felt about him. And I feel bad for Billy Joel, but he wasn't one of my favorites.
Now, do you feel this way about all famous artists that you like, or just a select few?
No. I think, honestly, Neil Diamond is probably the only one that I feel that strong a connection to, and I don't really know why. I mean, he was very popular, of course, when I was growing up, and he stayed popular, and I don't know. He came into Dallas for his 2017 tour, which I went to. And for some reason, I'm going to make this short, but for some reason, I had to see him again that year. This is 2017. Okay. So I said, I have to go to Phoenix. He was going to be in Phoenix in like the next month. I went to Phoenix with my son, saw him, and then 3 months later, he said he was not going to be touring anymore because of the Parkinson's. So That is a connection. Isn't that weird? I still think that's weird. But anyway.
Well, I also feel that in the reverse, how when I was a junior in high school and I was dating Amy from ARP, that I had the R. Kelly tape in my car for about 3 months. And she said to me one day, she's like, you need to get some new tapes because I only had like 4. But it didn't bother me because he was a fantastic singer. I love the subject matter which he sings about. It appeals to any teenage boy. But boy, I cut all that off when I saw the tapes where he got himself in trouble and that was being passed around the internet. Like it goes in reverse too. You can cut someone off. I don't think there's nearly as many Puff Daddy fans as there was a year ago.
Oh no, of course not. No, of course not. I hope not. But
I've also look here.
I mean that happens with people if you pay attention to what's going on in their life. But
here's another conundrum. When I was growing up, my grandmother was a big fan of Bill Cosby. She had his records and she had a VHS tape of, and she had his 2 books. And I remember reading Fatherhood several times, sitting at my grandmother's house after school. I'd want my kids to read that book and like digest it because there's some really good, wholesome values in that book, and it is funny. Yep. And I want them to go ahead and read that before they find out he's one of the biggest rapists in American history. Yeah.
I know. It happens. Unfortunately, their life is way different than ours is, so they have a lot more opportunities for that than you and I do. But,
well, if you do that for every celebrity, I think there's something wrong with you. But if you do that for 0 celebrities, I think there's something wrong with you. Right?
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, and I'll call back again and get insulted. But, no, I don't think that way about everybody.
Of course not. No, that's what I'm saying. You sound like you're in the middle like most of us. Like, if you don't think that about any celebrity, then you might be a sociopath. If you think that about every celebrity, then you're a little...
No.
Okay.
No, I do feel bad for Billy Joel. I mean, that's a horrible thing to have to happen to anybody, especially with someone that talented. But, yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, and I feel like the older I get, the younger 76 sounds. Right?
You were born in 76? Yeah, it should sound young. It is young.
Yeah. I was born in 77, but you're super close there. All right, good call, Donna. Thank you very much.
All right, talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Sorry about Neil Diamond, too. I know that still probably hurts.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Donna. Justin in St. Joe, you're on the James Show on WBAP. What do you think, Justin?
Hi, James. I just wanted to chime in on the topic of how these celebrities' deaths affect us, even though we didn't actually know them.
Okay, I knew people. Billy Joel had to cancel the rest of his tour. He has some brain condition that sounds kind of serious and it has us concerned, but why are we concerned? Justin, go ahead.
Well, I think an experience I had in my life can kind of encapsulate the whole phenomenon. And, we don't actually know these people, but what we do know is how they made us feel. And, like Texas, the old Texas Stadium, it's not a person. You can't get to know it, but it's part of our lives. It made us feel a certain way. And that's when they imploded it. That's one of the few times I can remember my dad crying. So, it's not about knowing them. It's about how they made us feel and the fact that it's a part of our lives.
Well, also in hindsight, that stadium sucked. You realize that when you go to games there, and if it was 95 outside, it'd be 105 inside. And I felt like that place was just miserable the few times I went.
Well, it was, but it's like the relationships we have with people. We look past the bad times and we just remember the really, the great memories. I mean,
yeah.
I'm not...
Well, no, Texas Stadium's a great example because sometimes you were in a 105-degree game. Sometimes you got to see some snow coming through the little hole in the top, and Leon Lett goofs the kick against Miami and screws it up. I remember one time when I went to Texas Stadium, probably like the second time I went there, my older sister was going to a New Kids on the Block concert, so me and my mom had to drop her off, and then we ended up like sneaking in later because no one was watching the door. So, yeah, we even get these familial attachments to objects.
Yeah, and it's really a matter of that it was a part of our lives, and we have these great feelings and memories associated with it, even if we didn't, actually, even if we were never there.
Yeah. But what tell me about St. Joe. Are y'all small enough to have 6-man football?
Yeah, man, we're about 1,000 population, about got wiped off the map with all this flooding the last few weeks. Family's been here since about 1870, I guess.
Yes, but this is how, if someone's from Bug Tussle, this is how we identify other Bug Tussles. If you're in a 6-man football, you have more rural cred than I do.
Honestly, I moved back here. I came back when, COVID had everything shut down because there was no point being in the city anymore.
Right.
And I haven't really gotten in touch with the local culture that much. I think the football team has moved up a rating, but I haven't been to any games lately. So I'm not. But yeah, we have a football team.
Well, of course you do. Everyone has it. If you don't have enough people to play, you just play six-man. And, Justin, I think there's a lot of people who are just finding out right now that six-man football exists when that's quite a normal thing out in the middle of nowhere. But, hey, thanks for the chat. You made some good points. Appreciate it, Justin.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, there's my guest. Bill Dindy's coming back on the James Show because I wanted to ask you, Bill Dindy, with all the talk about the big, beautiful bill, it's been mostly a political angle from either side, but I wanted to ask a financial guy, how will this affect the economy, you think, Bill?
Well, anything that reduces our taxes and allows us to have more tax deductions, such as increasing the state and local tax deduction or the SALT deductions, means we're not sending the money to the government, but we have that money in our own pockets, and we can then decide how to spend it. Now, some people are going to save it, but we are consumers, so most people are going to consume with it. And that extra consumption helps the economy. When more people are buying things and feel good and feel like they have money and they have a job that will still be there next month, they feel comfortable going ahead and spending money, and that is very, very positive. And so several things in this bill will allow us to have more deductions, like the temporary $500 increase in the child tax credit is going to provide some needed money to lower-income or to families with children that's going to allow them to spend that money elsewhere. And then the increase in the state and local tax deduction, that's going to be a big positive. So those things are positive. And then secondly, when the government spends money, I know it sounds terrible for the government to spend money, but they are spending it with people who are working in the economy, and that's positive for the economy. You can remember several recessions where we had the government spend our way out. In fact, Roosevelt had the idea that we'd build the parks, we'd build the roads, we'd do things to keep the economy running because the private industry couldn't spend money, the government could spend the money. And we're going to spend some money in areas that might be controversial to some, but border security funding, there's going to be $46 billion for the border wall. Well, that's going to create jobs in putting that thing up in manufacturing, and then $4 billion for border agents and $2 billion for signing and retention for Border Patrol agents. That puts money into the economy. That money is positive. So I think a lot of us will see probably a positive from this bill.
My concern is the excess deficit spending is going to make more money be printed, inflate the money supply. And so, yeah, we'll have more money to spend. But when the spending power of that dollar goes down, unless you're one of the people getting the subsidies, wouldn't you be worse off?
Well, that's a question long term, because we're all better off when the economy's rolling and money is being spent. And that also allows the government to collect more income tax dollars. So that's a positive. But when you see the other side of this bill, where we're raising the debt ceiling by $4 trillion, a trillion used to be like unthinkably large, and we're going to raise it ceiling by $4 trillion more dollars. That should cause everyone to have a little concern. We have been able to print money and not see negative repercussions because, to some degree, for as bad as it was here in the United States of America, it was worse elsewhere. But there may come a time when you have to pay the bill. And there is a time, like now, that just paying the interest on the bill can be a burden to the income that comes in from the government. And if we don't see interest rates go down, but rather see interest rates go up because people won't buy our debt, that could be devastating. We haven't seen that, but it is possible. And little was made of the downgrade of the U.S. government debt just last week, but that's a major thing. And when China was fighting with Trump about the tariffs, one of the weapons they used that was not well publicized was they started selling U.S. bonds on the market, causing interest rates to move up temporarily. That's a real risk if we cannot fund our debt. So I agree with you. There is that other side that we must know is out there, and hopefully there'll be, people within our elected body that care enough to stand up to this challenge of those who want to keep raising the debt ceiling and not take care of the bigger issues, which is cutting the spending and making us more fiscally responsible like you would have to be in your own household.
All right, Bill Dindy, you're a lot more optimistic than I am. I kind of appreciate the happy words there. Well, let's revisit this whenever the final version passes so we can actually talk brass tacks. But I appreciate your input on the James Show. Find Bill Dindy, a local financial advisor. He's pretty easy to find online. Alicorn, is that your gig?
Alicorn Investment Management, and it's a real pleasure to be with you, and always keep it a little positive. God bless you.
The James Show Podcast.